Okay, so we're going to talk about the product rule and power rule of exponents. Before we talk about that, we need to talk about the parts of an exponent. So we have the big number and the little number. This big number is called the base. This little number is called the exponent. Now, the base tells you what you're multiplying, and the exponent tells you how many times. So this would be 6 times 6 times 6, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 216. The opposite works as well. If you have W times W times W times W, that's the same thing as W to the fourth. If you have 1/8 times 1/8 times 1/8 times 1/8 and one more. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets. Now, if you wrote it like that, that would be wrong. Even if you wrote it like this, because that's like saying 1 to the 5th power divided by 8, when in actuality, it's 1/8 to the 5th power. So you always want to make sure you have the parentheses around it. And let me show you another one. Let's say that I had -5 to the 4th power. Now, most people would assume that that's -5 times -5 times -5 times -5, and it's not. This is a negative in front of 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. So it's actually -625. However, if you would have had -5 in parentheses to the 4th, that means you're taking the whole thing to the negative power. So this, in fact, is -5 times -5 times -5 times -5, which is a positive 625. So it makes a difference where the parentheses land. So that's very important to remember. Okay, so now let's talk about the product rule of exponents. The product rule is when you're multiplying two sets of exponents together. If the bases are the same, you add the exponents. And let me show you how that works. Let's say that I had x to the 3rd times x to the 4th. Now, x to the 3rd is x times x times x. X to the 4th is x times x times x times x. And then I'm also multiplying these two together. So, how many total x's do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 x's. What's 3 plus 4? 7. So I don't want to do that, especially if that was 20 and 30. I wouldn't want to write those down. I just know that if the bases are the same, you add your exponents. Now, it only works if the bases are the same. If this was an x and this is a y, you couldn't do anything about it. Now, a lot of people, when they have numbers, think you multiply these together, and you don't. This stays the same. You add your exponents. For example, 4 to the 7th times 4 to the 5th is add your exponents, 4 to the 12th. If I wrote this out, I would have 7 4s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I would have 5 4ths. And I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 total. And it's that simple. Well, we're going to get to more complicated ones. But as long as it's a multiplication problem and the bases stay the same, you add your exponents. All right, let's look at another one. What if I had z to the 4th times z to the 9th times z to the third. Now, the bases stay the same, so it's still z. What's 4 plus 9 plus 3? Or 4 plus 3 plus 9? So, it doesn't matter what order you add them in. 4 plus 3, 7. 7 plus 9 is 16. So let's take a look at another one that has parentheses. Negative 2x to the fourth and negative 4x to the fifth. Now, this is all multiplication. If I wrote this out, this would look like negative 2 times x to the fourth times negative 4 times x to the fifth. So we put together what we're doing. The negative 2 and the negative 4 would go together. And then the x to the fourth and the x to the fifth would go together. So what's negative 2 times negative 4? 8. Now, this one, x to the fourth and x to the fifth, bases are the same. So I add the exponents. 5 plus 4 is 9. Do I need to put a dot between there to show that's multiplication? No, we know that it's multiplication if they're right next to each other. All right, let's try another one of those. All right, so I'm going to put my whole numbers together. Remember, this is all multiplication. 4, negative 5, 2. Then I put my exponents together. X to the 8th times x to the 3rd times x to the 6th. So here, let's multiply these together. 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. Negative 20 times 2 is negative 40. X's bases are the same. 8 plus 3, 11. 11 plus 6 is 17. Okay, so now let's talk about power to a power. A power to a power is when you have a power inside and outside. To do this, you multiply the exponents together. Let me show you why. Let's say that I had 3 squared to the third power. That means I have 3 squared times 3 squared times 3 squared. Bases are the same. Add your exponents. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. Now, if I just multiply these together, 2 times 3 is 6. So a power to a power, you just multiply them. So let's say that I had 4 to the third power squared. That would be 3 times 2 is 6. What if I had a to the 6th to the 7th? That would be 6 times 7 is 42. Now, when you have parentheses, it can get a little tricky. And let me show you what I'm talking about. This is an exponent outside of all 3 of these. So what this means is that you have to take that exponent to each number. So this would be 7 to the 8th, x to the 8th, y to the 8th.